This game featured a sequence of around 20 moves in a row that just solved the game. Watch. C4, the English opening. Black responds knight f6, white puts the bishop on g2, all normal. Now black oftentimes attacks the center. In this game, Mecha didn't, and that's fine. Mecha just developing. Everything was normal. e3, you know, white is just trying to play d4. Black playing a move h6, just preventing stuff from coming to g5. White plays b3 and bishop b2, just developing pieces. Double fianchetto, bishops on the sides. Now, bishop g4. This part I don't understand. I don't know why this move wasn't played immediately. Bishop g4 inducing this and then this. I guess this pawn is a bit of a weakness. I don't know. And now d4. So, okay, nothing impressive so far. Stockfish has developed the knights, the bishops, castled, and played for the center. All these things you can do as well. Now, every chess game is about finding a way to coordinate your pieces from the opening, come up with a plan, advance into your opponent's position, win material, get to the king. Rook e8, Stockfish trades, and just off of this trade alone, things are now going to become a little more clear. The center is open. White has ideas to put the knight here to open up this bishop. White has ideas to put pressure on this diagonal. White is doing a nice job neutralizing this bishop against these pawns, right? So, knight to h4. Knight h4 attacks the bishop. It wants it to go back, and we're threatening bishop b7, right? Just winning up. Now, the problem with this move is that black has bishop d3, which makes us have to move the rook, and in that time, probably black will, you know, get out of the way and then try to get the knight in here next. Now begins pure brilliance. Stockfish evaluated taking this pawn was better. Obviously, because there's a hanging rook, so I counterattack the rook. No, that's not the idea. The idea is to simply take back the bishop. And when black moves the rook, to come back here. The next 20 moves by white are all logical, all flow together, all build on the previous move, all create weaknesses in the opponent's position, all capitalize on small inaccuracies, all lead to a decisive finish. The next 20 sequence of moves might be some of the most impressive. It's not hyperbole. Just watch how simple it is. Black goes here. Stockfish's game review gives that a dubious move. Doesn't matter. Now, I love how on the next move, it's the top computer move, but the game review gives this move a bad move. Don't pay attention. Rook d1. Simple move. Rook comes to the middle. Black goes rook d8. White goes queen e2. They levy out of... Okay. The idea of queen to e2 is to reposition the queen to the c2 square so that the e2 square is free for the knight to go to f4. So the knights together pair up not just on the center, but for a potential kingside attack. From the c2 square, you will reposition the bishop and the queen to create a battery on this diagonal, because in combination with these knights, there's going to be a lot of pressure on black's kingside due to the lack of the dark-squared bishop being present. After you reposition your pieces like this, you will then look to infiltrate potentially in the middle as well, bring the king to safety, and use these pawns because the bishop will no longer be pressuring the king. c6. That move fights for the d5 square, but potentially creates a long-term weakness on the d6 square. Because this move has no immediate repercussions, we continue with the plan queen to c2, simultaneously defending the square on f5 for our kingside knight to infiltrate and hit potentially 3 spots in the black position. Black responds with pawn to g6. That is a very big commitment anytime you push a pawn in front of your king like this and you leave things in particular weak. Now there are 2 weaknesses. To sacrifice this maneuver, we have given up dark square weaknesses. Now ideas like f4 are very tasty, which is why in this position, we continue with the plan of knight to e2, playing on this diagonal and putting the knight on the f4 square. Black plays queen e7. We don't really understand the point of that move. It's kind of just trying to generally protect things. So we reposition the knight to the f4 square. Every move flows together. g5 is not a fork because knight f5 is a counterattack. Black has to play a move. Black looks to create counterplay on the queen side to give us something to think about. Stockfish does think about it. It thinks it's stupid. Bishop to a1. You could have... Now we bring it back. Now we have set up this entire battery on the dark squares, and in the long run, with X-ray vision, we have simply a checkmate brewing on the black position. But the point of knight to f3 is not even to put pressure on the knight. The point of knight to f3 is to put the knight back into the middle of the board to put pressure on the c6 pawn, which was weakened some, 7 moves ago. Right, it was brought there, and now we have a knight coming to d4, and we're looking at it. And we have other ideas as well. Like, knight takes c6 is straight up a threat. Because if knight takes queen, like, look. Boom, we win. Why? GG. The battery has worked. So knight d4 attacks this. Black now has to get rid of the bishop. What do we take with? It all looks good. We take with the pawn. Because we need to move the knight out of the center of the board. The knight has moved. Queen over to c2 creates the threat of the sacrifice. With ideas like pawn takes, queen infiltrates, winning the next pawn, then d5 rips apart the position. Okay, black plays king h7. King h7 defends the pawn on g6, but king h7 is in the line of this queen. So now we play pawn to h4. We have pawn to h5 as a huge threat. The only way to defend the threat is for black to play h5 themselves. You stopped knight g6, you stopped h5, but now you've significantly weakened the g5 square, right? So after you significantly weaken the g5 square, this is what we're going to do. First, we're going to go here. We're going to open up our dark squared bishop from the opposite corner of the board. This is a shining example of why bishops are better than knights. Simply, they can attack from the opposite side of the board. Black plays c5. Black is a move away from consolidating. Remember that plan that we took to weaken g6 and then try to go h4, h5? Well, because you weaken this, now I put my knight on h3. And I'm going knight to g5. I don't care about sacrificing on g6 anymore. I just want to put the knight on g5. And after I put the knight on g5, I'm going to play bishop h3, which is where my knight just was, because I closed down the center from my light squared bishop. Pawn to f4. If pawn to f4 lands on the board, black's position completely disintegrates. Poof! So, black knows it's time to do something. You gotta infiltrate on the other side of the board. Now there's again only one move here that accomplishes anything. Moves like queen b2 are now wrong because the pawn will come in and attack the queen. So instead of that, we put the queen here. That was the wrong square previously, but now there is no counterplay. And from there, we also defend e1, which is very important because there will be a moment. Now, after queen c3, we have queen e7. Rook e1. Putting pressure. And now the final piece of the puzzle. Knight to h7. Again, ignore the game review symbol you're about to see. Black is trying to trade up the knight. We want to play pawn to f4, but there are tactics against our king in a lot of different lines. So in this position, we don't take, we don't back up. Again, ignore this. King g2. This is the best move. Now knight to f3 is no longer ever a check. If knight takes g5, we simply take. You cannot take because you get forked. Black now tries to come in here. Pawn takes, rook a. Black is trying. Rook is coming in here. Knight is trying to take. Stockfish's play is so ruthless. Pawn to f4. It has used every pawn in the game. It's now threatening to win material. Knight takes g5, pawn takes g5, rook a2 check, and the same bishop that is helping defend the queen for a checkmate defends the king. It can do two things at the same time. We are now going to take the knight. We are now going to have two bishops for the rook. Black gets desperate. f5. Stockfish has multiple ways to proceed, but Stockfish is a robot of culture. It knows when you see an en passant, you have to play the en passant. Pawn takes f6. Queen takes f6. Every move has flowed from the previous move. This is next. Black sacks the rook to defend themselves. Plays knight to g4. And if you thought all of this was impressive, we can't take the knight, so we go here. You thought all of this was impressive. White is just up a pawn. Well, white is totally winning. White is totally winning because it's not about taking this. It's just black's position is falling apart. Black doesn't have any counterplay at all. This pawn is too strong. But come up with a plan. How do you win this position with white? You can't move the bishop. You can't move the rook. You don't even have a pawn move. On the 45th move of the game, after beginning this unbelievable repositioning process, it has been 30 moves of pure brilliance. And 30 moves later, Stockfish finds the final dagger of a plan. White plays king to h3. The plan is walk in with the king. Black's king cannot get any closer. You will trade off enough pawns to clear out the position, and black will simply lose. Knight to g7, king to h4. You cannot stop the infiltration. Black has to give up the knight to win the bishop, but white is just winning. It's equal pawns, but it's not equal pawns. And in a rook endgame, all you need is 2 connected pass pawns. Then you win, because the king walks up with them, and they shield the king from checks. And that is exactly what Stockfish did. It just marched the pawns up the board, put the rook like this behind the enemy pawn, with ideas to get here, and now this is easy. You just come up with the pawns. Black tries to create some counterplay, you have a 2-pawn advantage, pawn to f6, pawn to king to g6, king f7, and this game ends with white promoting to a rook, and then white promoting to a queen.